Hello and a very warm welcome to Moneycontrol.com, your trusted source of digital financial news in India and the rest of the world. There's something unprecedented that's happening in our neighborhood. Pakistan's economy is on the brink of collapse. There are horrifying pictures, images coming from there of people standing in long queues just to access the basics. If you look at the financial numbers, we are looking at a debt collapse. We are looking at an inflation that's running to at a 48-year high level, and we are looking at a situation of scarcity and of panic. To understand the situation in Pakistan, what went wrong with Pakistan's economy, and can it come back from there? I have with me Mr. Amir Jahangir, co founder and CEO of Mishal Pakistan, and Mr. Ashwani Mahajan, renowned economist from the Swadeshi Jagaran Manch. Thank you, Amir, for joining us from Islamabad. Really appreciate the time and you taking out the time to join us for this conversation. Like I said, there is a lot of there is a lot of curiosity and also a lot of concern when we see horrific images coming out of Pakistan, where people are queuing up just to get access to the basics. Everyday news coming from Pakistan is not looking good. So how bad is it, Amir? First, let's get it from the horse's mouth. You're sitting in Islamabad. Tell us, how bad is it?
Well, first of all, don't believe on the some of the information that you're seeing on, because there was a big line on the launch of Tim Horton in Lahore also.
That's
So that's
true, which
not,
is
yeah. So that's
yeah,
not
which is very
reflective of,
perplexing. Very perplexing. So again, it's a big line in front of Tim Horton, which is opening it's a store in Lahore, and then
yeah.
you have a big queue of people waiting to get basic ration.
Yeah. So the problems with Pakistan are real, and I think the people are definitely are suffering and are uh, uh, not sure how the economic managers are looking at the issues. If you look at the the current government, how they have been trying to manage the economic situation, it has been more than 8 months now, and they have been trying to negotiate with IMF also for a loan. Uh, Unfortunately, they have not been able to create that trust with the international institutions. And this is because they have adopted a few measures where the accountability and transparency mechanisms went down. They took certain political decisions which reflected in a way that the decisions of the accountability courts were in favor of them. But this is not happening for this government only. Even the last government, the 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 finance ministry, who is the chief negotiator with the IMF, has been unable to create that level of comfort with the international lender. So I think the basic problem with right now is trust in the system that Pakistan can showcase, and then the competence it can display to manage the economy, and then finally also the 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 transparency how money should be spent in the system. So these are the big, and then also consistency in the policy is very important, which has been disrupted in the last 1 year because of the certain political situation in the country.
Okay. Very interesting points there. You're saying it is bad, people are suffering, but it's probably not as bad. That's one of the things that you said. And the dichotomy is, like you pointed out, the Tim Hortons lines outside Tim Hortons and lines outside, basic ration stores. And I think that just shows the inequality in the state. But also what's perplexing is that the government, from my vantage point, I feel that the government could have been far more proactive. This was something that they saw coming. I want to bring in Mr. Mahajan on this. Mr. Mahajan, when you see and you've studied economies extensively, When you see what's happening in Pakistan, do you, in your view, what could the government have done? Could they have preempted this crisis, and could they have avoided this the perilous situation that they find themselves in right now?
I feel Pakistan has been facing this problem for long. The only thing is that it is getting prolonged. And trigger of the Pakistan's problem is the fiscal mismanagement and spending on those items where it is not required and spend not spending on those where it is required. Like published measures leading towards more of subsidies and keeping the prices of certain commodities lower just to please the people in the sense of what you call freebies, uh, and also the fact that the government has been spending on defense uh, at the level of expenditure on defense has been very high, and that money that could have been used for better purposes. On the other hand, when you are building infrastructure, it's a good thing because infrastructure is something which is required for making the economy more competitive and taking the economy forward. But in case of Pakistan, what I find is that they were making infrastructure not as per their needs, but as per the dictates of some foreign power. I mean, China-Pakistan economic corridor and related infrastructure with which is say power plants which are there included in the China-Pakistan economic corridor. When Pakistan didn't have the sufficient grid connectivity, that really actually couldn't work, and that the the lot of capacity gone waste, and Pakistan is under debt from China, and that debt is not being repaid. If we look at India's infrastructure, for instance, we have built infrastructure in India not based on the foreign borrowings. In fact, you might remember that when Government of India thought of raising loans through sovereign bonds, Swadeshi Jagaran Manch disagreed with that, and government didn't go ahead with that. But in case of China and several other countries where they started building infrastructure uh, riding on foreign loans, and in case of China's Belt Road Initiative scheme, we find that China has not been consistent in giving loans to different countries. In some countries they had given loan at a very high rate of interest, and that created repayment problems. And if you see, the trigger of the Pakistan's problem is not coming from the uh, domestic policies per se, but it is uh, because of the loans which they have taken for building so-called infrastructure, which was of no use to the Pakistani people. And this has led to the payment problems, and this has led to the depreciation of the Pakistan's currency. And obviously, world is very much interconnected. If your currency devalues, then whatever you are importing, like oil, uh, you are importing, obviously that would be much dearer. And when you keep the prices of petrol and diesel lower in India as well, if you see, government of India raises a lot of revenues through petroleum products, and that is made use of to build more infrastructure with your own money. But Pakistani government didn't do that, and they rather chose to give subsidies to the people and keep the prices of petroleum products lower, and that led to increased pressure on the budget and on the government finances, and ultimately they are into the soup.
Okay, several reasons, Mr. Mahajan, that you listed. I want to bring in Amir here. Amir, governance is one thing, governance aspect of it, ensuring that the policies, that the spending expenditure is directly targeted towards areas that will create jobs and spur employment. I want to get your thoughts in on the points that Mr. Mahajan has raised. In the kind of foreign policy that Pakistan has followed, foreign economic policy, getting in, bringing in a lot of Chinese investments into building infrastructure, that's one. Overspending on defense, perhaps. Is there? Do you think that the government could have done better in terms of reorienting its expenditure mix and maybe done what India did in terms of just financing in their own infrastructure push rather than taking money from countries like China?
I think one of the problems that we can identify is that Pakistan has an expenditure index of 94%. So that is something which needs to be changed. We need to create or manufacture more locally rather than importing and then expand and then using that. But the other thing I think is very important that the areas where Pakistan can look into in terms of where it can improve its competitiveness is also very important. I think the problem is with the people who are managing at the economic situation right now, and don't see any substantial initiative which can help or kickstart the economy. So that is something you see in this government and even in the previous government also. The flagship program of the last government was the housing projects, and housing was something which actually was not something which was linked with the economic development or linked with the institutional development or financial institutions to be part of that. So I think the failure of imagination at the hands of uh, the the economic managers in Pakistan, I think that's a very crucial thing. They need to find solutions. They need to find areas where the economy can kickstart. Right now, what I see is the whole effort is just to create certain fiscal space or balance of payment, and that is what the whole narrative is all about. So I think
Hmm.
it is also a matter of creating a narrative also on what is that can be done, what is that dream that can a young Pakistani can imagine or can look into and make an economic contribution to the country.
So, what is the sentiment amongst the young Pakistani when they look at what's going on in the country? Like you pointed out that manufacturing capabilities have not been built up. Services, maybe there has been a little bit of growth on that front. But when you look at Pakistan across parameters, whether it is literacy, whether it is just access to opportunities, there's much that is left to be desired. So, what is right now currently? What's the view of the average Pakistani? Are they looking? Are they happy with the government constantly spending on defense and ignoring other sectors? I have to ask you this.
I think one of the challenges that we are facing is that Pakistan moved from manufacturing to services very quickly. Without actually building the manufacturing sector, the country moved to the services sector. So that actually is not helping the even the services sector because it is not prepared to provide those services to the relevant economic factors which can help the economy.
Mhm.
So I think this is something which young people are uh, looking into the opportunities of entrepreneurship and other such things. But we need to see that almost 150,000 people turn 18 years of age every month in the country. So that is the challenge what the government has in terms of creating jobs every month. This number of jobs, this number of resources are required every month for the next at least 30 years.
Mhm. Right. Is there an assessment, and this is a question for both of you, on how much does Pakistan need right now? Where does it go from here? IMF has come back and said that we will not give a loan unless Pakistan tightens its belt. And Mr. Mahajan also pointed out, and that there have been huge subsidies, freebies, whatever you might want to call it, and that's probably led to a lot of bleeding of public finances. Finances that could have been used to create public assets have been just given out, and that money has dried up now. So, where does Pakistan go from here? What's next? Because what happens in Pakistan impacts India as well. It worries India that China's engagement with Pakistan is so high, and it could get higher considering the financial situation Pakistan finds itself in. Mr.
Well, I
Mahajan, you
think.
can. Yeah, sorry.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, go on. Amir, go on.
So I think the current government is also playing politics with the IMF also. They're stalling the negotiations so the tranche can be delivered in the next month. This could have been achieved earlier also, but I think if that happened, they would have to go into early elections as well. So I think there is a political side of the negotiations also. But I think once what IMF is asking is to Pakistan to showcase that it has the capacity to spend and manage the amount that it will lend to Pakistan. So it needs to showcase the intellectual and professional capacity to manage that. That is one. Then it needs to showcase the system is transparent. So the money which is being given is being spent on the challenges and issues that Pakistan is committing to. And the third is there is accountability in the system. So people who are responsible for spending this money are held accountable if there is something if something goes wrong. So I think these measures could have been agreed at least 12 months or not 12 months, 8 months ago. But there is a political side of the whole negotiation also, which I think is the nation is and the people of Pakistan are paying a price for that.
That is really very shocking to hear. It's a real pity. My heart goes out to the people of Pakistan right now just to hear that. Playing
Because
politics at a
there,
time.
because there is no opposition in the assembly. So there is no accountability of the current government as well in the National Assembly. So, so
I
the
mean, you won't get
political.
into trouble now for saying all this. You won't get into trouble in Pakistan for saying all this, right? For
No,
this
no,
very candid assessment.
but I'm, I'm,
That's good.
I'm telling you what I see. I think
Yeah.
Pakistan needs at least 24 months of at least consistency in leadership to showcase transparency, accountability, and also policy consistency as well.
Yeah.
Let me bring in Mr. Mahajan's thoughts in. Yes, Mr. Mahajan.
Yeah, Shweta, what I see is that there is a problem of leadership in the Pakistan. That is one thing. But we have seen all kinds of leaderships, but they had not been able to make any dent on the problem, and the problem has been accentuating uh, day after day. As Amir ji has rightly pointed out, that the issue of ignoring manufacturing has been one of the key reasons why Pakistan is facing this problem. You understand that in agriculture there are hardly any possibilities of increasing employment as we find in case of India. Uh, the job opportunities can come in the services sector, but they are limited, especially in the IT and others. So, if you want to increase employment opportunities, the only way is through the manufacturing. In India as well, we do find some people, some so-called economists, suggesting and arguing for uh, forgetting manufacturing and going ahead with the services services growth. But uh, what I feel is, and what and this view is shared by many, that we need to develop all the sectors of the economy. So if Pakistan is to learn lessons on this issue, then they must reduce their dependence on the Chinese imports and also start producing, start manufacturing goods at home. And in India, the government of India has been able to start a very innovative scheme of production linked incentive scheme, and that is going to bear fruits. Similarly, the in Pakistan also, life as usual, policies as usual, governance as usual is not going to give fruits. We have to make changes in the mindset, and this is the right time for Pakistan to choose between uh, two options. One, going taking the life as usual, uh, and spending on defense and indulging in all sorts of activities, not I won't say promoting terrorists, but not containing terrorism. And that is now impacting the Pakistan also. They are also facing the problem of terrorism. And the very fact that they are very low on the international ranking agencies, uh, uh, like they are triple C minus now, according to Fitch, and similarly, international agencies which are looking at the terror funding, they are also looking at Pakistan with suspicion. So all sorts of things are in fact impacting Pakistan, because Pakistan's major source of foreign exchange is from the remittances from the non-resident Pakistanis, and they will also stop sending money if they feel that Pakistan is not a safe place for parking their funds. Therefore, what I feel is we need to uh, take uh, take some different measures, or what you can say, the some innovative measures about the economy, about the funding, about the whole approach towards the governance. It should not be anti-India approach. It has to be pro-Pakistanis approach.
Okay. Very interesting advice coming in there. Amir, do you think that this will be a wake-up call for Pakistan? Do you think that there is enough anger right now in the country that this could propel a big change, this might actually could have turned out to be a blessing in disguise if if this entire episode becomes instrumental in bringing in a lot of changes in the country's economy?
I think definitely. I think, and that's what I think IMF is also pushing for. That we need to strengthen the accountability and transparency mechanisms within the society. The economy needs to work in a more transparent way, and once that is there, I think then the IMF tranche will come in, and then there is some money is also lined up with the friendly nations also. So I don't think this will be a big problem in the next 30 days. But the real challenge is that Pakistan needs to fix the system in terms of what IMF is identifying. So IMF is identifying create transparency, create accountability. and then also have people who understand economy, who can manage the economy in a professional manner. That is, I think, the primary reasons where IMF is also putting pressure.
So will there be an opposition in Pakistan, Amir? Do you think that this could actually mean a complete overhaul in the way Pakistan has run its politics?
I think yes, the political side, as Dr. Saab mentioned, that a lot of politics has been around popular slogans in the country, whether it is this government or the previous government. So a lot of economic initiatives or economic steps that were taken were not in economic interest but rather in political interest. So the getting the votes on your side was the primary objective. So I think there is a correction needed in the system also,
Right.
that
No, so
how.
what I want to ask you is that will there be a correction in the system? Will Imran Khan let this government function? Will there be a transfer of power, or will the government get toppled by the time the IMF loan comes in, which is probably a concern for IMF too? So do you see something emerging from the country which can tell you that there will be political certainty, which might assure the lenders?
I see a more technocratic, leadership centric, as leadership centric to technocratic understanding emerging in the country. So it can be part of what this government can embrace, or maybe early elections will bring in the government which will have. That is the way forward right now. So they will
Okay.
bring in people who are more merit based and more economic centric rather than political centric.
So you
Uh,
think there is an intent
Shweta,
for that? Yes, Mr.
Shweta,
Mahajan. Yes.
what I feel is that what is required is not the change of the government at this point of time, but a convergence of different political parties and their willingness to solve the problems faced by the Pakistan. In fact,
Right.
all have been responsible for these problems, and all of them have to come forward, join hands and solve the problems. And I think this is the time for Pakistan to have a kind of a national government instead of any political party's government, and try to solve this problem, because Pakistan is in a soap, and this has to be resolved, because this is, after all, uh, mm, the issue is of a nation, and a greatly populated country, and we think that Pakistani people should not suffer, and therefore there has to be a kind of a nationalist government, and all sorts of differences of regions, of political ideologies, and others should be sorted out, and then we must try and find out a solution to the problems, rather than fighting against each other and going in for this kind of populist policy or the other kind of populist policy, or going into the lap of China further, and ultimately leading the Pakistan to a major problems.
Okay. I want to ask you, Mr. Mahajan, does it worry you? Does China's involvement in Pakistan worry you? Amir also mentioned friendly nations that could come and help Pakistan. We know China is one of them. We know that China is involved in a lot of very crucial infrastructure projects in Pakistan. So, does it concern you of its implications on India?
In fact, China's involvement in infrastructure anywhere in the world is worrying India, because they have been looking at the strategic assets, strategic ports, strategic positions, wherever they can increase their strategic powers. And therefore, whatever the situation in Pakistan is, it is worrying for the whole world. It's not just India, and therefore we need to do something about it. And the Pakistani leadership must join hands. All these political parties, rather than fighting with each other, they should try and find solutions. Because if China's influence on Pakistan's policies increases, it will impact Pakistan more than what it impacts India.
Do you agree with that, Amir?
Yeah, I think, but we need to also look into why CPAC is so crucial for the Belt Road Initiative. If you look at the Belt and Road initiatives, the paths that the both have, the crucial Pakistan is the point where both these points actually connect. So that's why it is so important for China to have CPAC running and have Pakistan on its side, and also to have that infrastructure, enabled infrastructure, which can support the entire Belt Road Initiative, which actually connects more than 60 countries or 60 nations across the world. So I think it is also in the interest of China to make sure that Pakistan has the capable economic capability to carry on with the CPAC initiative.
Right.
I,
So
I
now,
disagree. I disagree here, Shweta, because China's strategy has always been not to build infrastructure. It has been to create a debt dependency, and this debt trap diplomacy of China has been worrying everybody. In fact, it should worry China. Pakistan should be worried about this. Already, 12 countries have faced this problem of debt trap, and therefore this is a debt trap diplomacy. I disagree here that it will create infrastructure for Pakistan, because China Pakistan economic corridor is actually not a kind of infrastructure which is required for Pakistan per se. Pakistan required different types of infrastructure, but what suited China was China Pakistan economic corridor. So I disagree here that China is interested in creating infrastructure for more and better connectivity. In fact, this Belt Road initiative is not going to complete because of the opposition from many other countries, including many of the European countries, and it's in a big problem. This BRI scheme. Therefore, this Belt Road is not going to be completed. So this has created debt for the Pakistan, and as I have already mentioned, that the kind of infrastructure which was created by this Belt Road initiative has not been of any use to the Pakistan, because when they created the electricity generation projects, Pakistan didn't have the connective grid connectivity, and that could not be made use of, and that's the reason why many of the Pakistani industries had to close down because of the high tariffs uh,
But
and lack of.
when I look at the infrastructure in Pakistan and I see the motorways being built, part of the CPAC, I can travel from one point to the other in less than 3 hours, which used to take more than 8 hours. So there has been some benefit to the people of Pakistan with this also, and that is something which is connecting the markets to the frontiers also, and that is something which is being part of that. Look, Belt and Road Initiative has a vision for the next 50 years, so we can't see what is happening right now, but ultimately it will be connecting more than 60 nations across the world. So, what if you can imagine the future of Belt and Road in 60 years, you will realize that there will be nations who will be connected through this initiative, and then there will be nations who will be not part of that and will be excluded from that whole interconnected trade networks around the world.
Okay, both clearly very distinctly different points of view, and I think that's being reflected in the way India has chosen to build its infrastructure vis-a-vis how Pakistan has, chosen to build its infrastructure. We're coming to towards the end of this conversation. I just want to pose this question to both of you now. Uh, where does Pakistan go from here? uh, will it collapse, or do you think that the government will be able to secure that loan and just be able to just barely scrape through and then restart again, or will we see a country go the Sri Lanka way? Let me bring start with Amir first.
I think the government will be able to negotiate with the IMF, and then the other already in place negotiations which has been done with let's say China, UAE, Saudi Arabia, and that will come in. So I see by March, April, I see an injection of 30 to 40 billion dollars in the Pakistani system.
Okay, and would that be enough?
I think for the time being, yes, and then then it depends on the government how to kickstart the economy, how to create initiatives which can actually create an economic momentum which can take the country forward.
So, how will the government spend this money if it were to get it? What if 80% of it goes just in payment of loans or interest?
And that's what the people who want to commit wants Pakistan's commitment that it will be spent in the way that the country is committing basically. So
But
that's what I said, that we need mechanisms for transparency and accountability, and then also a team of experts, a team of specialists who can basically take the whole thing forward.
historically speaking, Mr. Mahajan, has this have things gone as bad for Pakistan as we see today? And you just heard Amir talk about the need for bringing in accountability and checks once they bring in that money. What's your assessment of will Pakistan be able to come out of this crisis?
See, first of all, I have already said that it's not the IMF who can solve the problems of Pakistan. It is Pakistani themselves who can solve their problems. Because IMF, if you see into the historical background, IMF has not been able to solve problems of any country whosoever has been facing the default. Uh, actually, Pakistani politicians, Pakistani leadership has to come forward to find solutions for this. And IMF and the friendly nations may give money once, but it can't continue to give you money. Therefore, the domestic policies have to be reformed. And in that case, we have to come out of uh, the populist measures. We have to fix the problem of economy by encouraging more of manufacturing. Pakistan had been good at manufacturing in the past. It's not that they have to create uh, the very new industries. The only thing is that those industries were closed down, either closed down or badly affected because of the Chinese competition. And also the fact that the Pakistani government had to depend upon the foreign loans for building infrastructures. Now,
Right.
I think it is the Pakistani people, those who have to find the solutions, and not the IMF. Wherever the IMF has gone, they put various conditions. These conditionalities of IMF uh, worsen the problems of the countries, and therefore I don't find the solution will come from IMF loan. Yes, at this point of time, Pakistan has got no option except to accept the conditions of IMF. But in future, the Pakistani leadership has to come forward, fix their problems, and find solutions for the welfare of the people. And the welfare in the longer run is more important. And they should take lessons from India, that India is going through the election year But the government has, instead of giving freebies or adopting populist measures, they have devoted more than 10 lakh crores for the infrastructure. That is about 24% of the total expenditure.
Right. Thank you for that, Mr. Mahajan. So, very quickly, lessons from Pakistan. Amir, three key lessons that the world needs to learn from Pakistan, and you feel that that's something that should not be repeated or should be adopted. Policy
I think
measures, interventions, whatever you might want to call it.
I think less consumption, more exports. That's number one.
Less
Uh,
consumption.
yeah. So
Are
we
you
are
saying domestic consumption
we
is
are
so
consuming-
high?
we are the consumption pattern in Pakistan is 94% that we consume is imported basically.
Oh, okay.
That is
Mhm.
the second is uh, making use of the population and training them, giving them skill sets which can prepare a good population for the global workforce. And third is looking at the economic policy towards in a manner that it can identify new sectors where Pakistan can have more competitive advantage rather than concentrating on the previous areas where Pakistan might not have the competitiveness advantage.
Okay, interesting. Mr. Mahajan, lessons from Pakistan for other countries?
See, first of all those 61 countries, those who are going in for Belt Road initiatives, many of them have they have started rethinking. Others should also start rethinking, including Pakistan. So, coming out of the clutches of the China in all fields, infrastructure, in manufactured goods, imports, and all. So, this is one. Second is that the fiscal management has to be prudent for any country to be successful. And here, in this case, both Pakistan as well as Sri Lanka have shown the opposite. So it must the governments must be prudent in their fiscal affairs. And thirdly, the uh, the governance uh, governance has to be of the kind where pe- it has to be people centric rather than continuing with their uh, rule by pleasing the general masses.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much. It was a very, very candid discussion, and we wish Pakistan all the best. We do hope that it comes out from this stronger and far more transparent, fiscally prudent. Thank you very much, Mr. Mahajan, for that very, very nuanced assessment of where Pakistan has gone wrong and what it can do to be better. We look forward to having the both of you back on Money Control very soon. Thank you so
Good,
much.
good wishes for Pakistan from depth of my heart. Yeah.
Same here.
See, so much positivity on money control. It's not like it's all not negative, and it's so good. We are wishing each other well, so that's great. Okay, thank you so
Thank
much.
you very
Thanks for
much.
watching.
Bye bye. Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.